Peter, at the end of the war, you were posted to Norway.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about what you were doing there and what life was like.
Well, life was pretty calm there because there was very little flying. The only flying we did was in German aircraft. The Spitfires that were there, they couldn't get spares for them, so they were told not to fly them very much. And the main purpose of our being there was to ferry the German aircraft from Norway down to Germany. I never got to actually ferry aircraft that length of time, but I did manage to get a flight in a 190 and a 109 and a Fiesler Storch. The 190, the Focke-Wulf 190, was a rather odd aeroplane. I don't think it compared with any of the aircraft I'd flown in the RAF, but it had a fantastic rate of roll. It had very, very light aileron control, and you could fly along straight, whack this stick over, and you could do a roll even at normal flying speed. It was really fantastic that way. I was surprised to find that the Spitfire could shoot them down because the Spitfire couldn't roll as fast as they could. It could turn inside them quite easily because they hadn't got an enormously small turning circle. But I should have thought that the German pilots would have realised that had a Spitfire got on their tail, if they'd whacked it into a vertical turn the opposite direction, they could have got away because the Spitfire couldn't have turned so quickly, well, couldn't have rolled so quickly. However, that was the 190. The 109 was very similar to the Hurricane. It would turn quite well, and it was quite a reasonable aircraft, again very much like a Hurricane. The Fiesler Storch was something completely different. It could take off in a strong wind of about 30 miles an hour. You could fly a Fiesler Storch backwards. You could take off and you could fly a Fiesler Storch in still air at about 28-30 miles an hour. You put flaps down. It had leading edge slots, rear flaps, and you could hang it on the prop sort of and fly along quite happily at between 28 and 30 miles an hour. In a strong wind, as I say, you could hover in the air and then float gently backwards. It had a most peculiar rudder bar. The two rudder bar pedals were quite steep, and if you relaxed your feet on them, it put the brakes on. So unless you moved your feet down so that you could use your rudder bar without pressing on the top of the pads, you could land normally. But normally you would land and then you'd relax your feet, the brakes would go on and you'd go zoop and stop, and you'd stop very quickly. So you had very short takeoff and very short landing run. It was again a remarkable aircraft. I believe there was a case before the war where somebody flew one of those indoors in one of the Berlin big stadiums. Now I can vaguely remember something about that, but it certainly was possible to do so. As regards going into town in Norway, I remember being in town once and I was walking along the pavement and I noticed ahead of me people were standing and stopping and facing the road, and then either giving a sort of semi-bow or saluting if they were in uniform. And I watched what was happening was somebody was cycling down the road, and as he got closer, I realised it was King Haakon of Norway cycling down the road, and people were saluting him. So I turned to face the road, and as he went by I gave him a salute and watched him go by. Another odd thing that happened there was I was going down a side street on quite a narrow pavement when I noticed some couple of German other ranks coming towards me, and I noticed people were stepping off the pavement. Probably this had been having to do this for the last four years. I saw them coming, so I just stopped and waited. They walked straight up to me and stopped when they realised I wasn't going to move, and looked up, realised that I was an officer. Both of them sort of looked at each other and then gave me a salute. And I returned the salute and still didn't move. So they hastily got off the pavement and went past me in the gutter. And I watched them go, and then I looked around and noticed that most of the people locally was grinning heavily. It was something that they hadn't seen for a long time.
Thanks, Peter.